possible. I tell them, try Cascade Platinum, plus the power of Oxy. It breaks down food soils to clean up to 99% of visible and invisible.
Happening now.
More than a dozen arrests and dozens of citations issued after a street racing incident last night. I'm Devin Clark. Coming up, we'll show you some of the footage from the scene and tell you what neighbors heard and saw.
Mail-in ballots in Bexar County have shattered the records for previous elections, and the early voting turnout is expected to surpass the 2016 election. We're going to break down the numbers.
We're 15 days until Election Day, and most of the country is able to participate in early voting. I'm Nadia Romero outside of the White House. I'll break down what it takes to get out the vote coming up.
And a cold front is just teasing us today. We're on the warm side of it for now. I'll let you know when a cold front's actually going to move through and pave the way for some changes coming right up. The News at 5 starts right now.
First at 5, ordinary San Antonio streets became dangerous high-speed drag racing strips overnight. That's according to witnesses who say last night dozens of vehicles competed in at least 4 illegal street racing competitions.
Now Devin Clark is here with homeowners' accounts and the video they shot in their own neighborhood.
San Antonio police were busy overnight responding to at least 4 illegal street racing events. They happened at intersections like Pecan Valley and East South Cross and Houston and Cherry Streets, where police say the vehicles blocked a fire truck. Then there was Culebra and I-10, where witnesses say more than 100 vehicles crowded the area. And finally, Bandera and Skyview, where this happened. The Sanchez family lives nearby and was preparing to go to bed when the sound of loud noises like screeching tires and bullhorns jolted them awake.
And I see like a lot of people here running and jumping, and they're just spinning over and over.
There was even girls announcing with the big black sign banner, walking up and down like all sexy, doing their thing.
In the year the family has lived here, they say they have heard other cars speeding down their street.
Chargers, 5.0, trucks.
But nothing like last night's display. Police say some racers even threw objects at patrol cars, breaking windows. One officer minorly injured after being struck in the head with a beer bottle. They say it was thrown by 20-year-old Jesus Torres. He's been charged with assault on a peace officer and evading arrest. 2 others in his vehicle also charged.
From start to finish, Sanchez says the entire fiasco took about 10 minutes. When it was all said and done, police were able to make 14 arrests and issue some 70 citations. The crimes included evading arrests and reckless driving. And if you take a look, you can see a web of tire marks still left in the middle of the road.
Officers also say they confiscated several weapons and towed numerous vehicles from the scenes. Tonight, SAPD saying it will not tolerate this activity and asking anyone who witnesses it to call 210-225-TIPS. Devin Clark, KSAT 12 News.
Also new at 5, 3 people shot by Cibolo police after they were caught on camera trying to break into vehicles last week. Let's take a look at that video. The Cibolo Police Department shared this home surveillance footage on Facebook. They say it was taken last Thursday, October 15th. You see 3 people walk from one house to the next. One person wearing a mask and a hoodie tries opening the doors of 2 vehicles in the same driveway. He then approaches a 3rd vehicle, but seems to notice the surveillance cameras, and then he walks away. If you have any information on who these people are, that one guy in particular, contact the Cibolo Police Department at 210-659-1999 or the Guadalupe County Crime Stoppers. That number is 877-403-TIPS.
We now know the name of a man hit and killed while crossing I-35 last week. The Bexar County Medical Examiner now identifying him as 34-year-old Robert Joseph Wilkie.
According to police, the driver exiting Rittiman didn't see Wilkie because he was wearing dark clothing. The driver said she tried swerving to avoid hitting him, but she couldn't. Wilkie died at the scene. The driver is not facing any charges.
Meantime, we are still working to learn the name of a man who was shot and killed after breaking into an apartment last night. It happened at the Flats at Big Tex Apartments in the 400 block of Blue Star. Police say that a man on the 4th floor saw someone breaking into his neighbor's apartment from his balcony. Shortly after letting his neighbor know, police say the intruder went into the apartment with a gun. Police say the resident ran outside, was met by the neighbor who alerted him, and then after seeing the suspect's weapon, police say the neighbor fired several shots through the door, killing the suspect. It's unclear whether any charges are pending here.
A 38-year-old man in the hospital after he crashed his SUV into a home last night. It happened at the corner of South San Joaquin Avenue and Monterey Street. Police said the driver, speeding along South San Joaquin, when he hit a bump, lost control, took out a trash bin, a utility pole, before plowing into the living room of the home where a 77-year-old woman was sleeping. The woman's son managed to pull her out from under debris with the help of neighbors. She suffered some minor injuries. The driver, however, suffered critical injuries, according to police. It's unclear what charges that driver will face. The presidential election about 2 weeks away, and already more than 28 million people have cast ballots. The massive turnout is shattering records.
Nadia Romero is in Washington to explain those numbers, the state of the race as well, 15 days before Election Day. Nadia.
Well, Ursula and Steve, we are getting closer and closer to the election, and more people are out doing early voting than ever before. And that's why we're seeing the candidates in those battleground states. President Trump in Arizona today, Vice President Mike Pence in Pennsylvania, and Senator Kamala Harris in Florida. In those battleground states vying for votes, all the while voters are out there putting in their mail-in ballots in the mail, and they're waiting in long lines to cast their ballots in person.
Before the sun rose in the Sunshine State, people stood in line to vote.
Just to get ahead of the rush, obviously seeing what's gone on in Georgia and other places where the lines have been pretty long.
I'll make sure that my vote gets counted. I'm putting it here, and I want to get done early.
Monday, early voting started in 52 of Florida's 67 counties.
I've been waiting for a long time to cast my vote, and I think it's about time America stood up and said what they wanted to say.
From the southernmost tip in Key West to North Florida, long lines snaked around polling places as Floridians got their first chance to make their picks for president in person.
I support President Trump.
This is my son, and he is also voting for Biden.
In the crucial swing state, more than 2.4 million ballots have already been mailed in. 30% come from registered Republicans and 49% from registered Democrats. The other 20% do not have any party affiliation. Some voters would rather cast ballots in person.
I didn't trust the process, which I've done it before. For this election, I just figured it's the president. Let me just go in person.
It's not just Florida. Voting enthusiasm has spread across the country and is setting records. The ballots cast so far represent about 20% of the total vote in 2016. Some hope the turnout will encourage others.
By coming here today on the first day, it's to make the waves happen, to get people motivated to come out here and make a difference.
So besides the presidential election, voters will have a say in who controls the Senate. That's up for grabs in this election as well. And 4 more states could vote to legalize marijuana. Live from outside the White House, I'm Nadia Romero. Steve and Ursula, back to you.
And we continue to watch it locally as well. Thank you, Nadia.
We have now entered week 2 of early voting here in Bexar County. That means there are only 12 days left to cast your ballot. That is before Election Day itself. So 1 week after people started hitting the polls, Bexar County saw some big numbers and long lines in some places as well.
Garrett Berger talked with Election Administrator Jackie Callanan this morning. Garrett joins us from Lions Field, one of the busiest polling sites so far. Garrett, we know there's been a big turnout of people in person, but it's not all the in-person vote that's surging.
No, you're absolutely right, Steve. You can see the line behind me at Lions Field, so there are still plenty of people coming out to vote in person, but the big numbers are coming in by mail, where Bexar County continues to see record-breaking numbers. Now, as of this morning, Elections Administrator Jackie Callanan said the county had sent out more than 105,000 mail-in ballots and received back more than 62,000 of them, far above the 2016 and 2018 general election numbers, which each saw fewer than 40,000 absentee ballots cast. Of course, we've still got a while to go for those to come in. Now, voters still have until Friday to get in their applications for a mail-in ballot.
So we have no idea how high. It's like, how high can we go? The opposite of limbo, how low can you go? We're just watching it go. The highest, as I said, we've ever had was 58,000 mailed ballots out.
And of course, that's just the ballots out, not those that came in. Now, while more than 207,000 voters have cast ballots in person as of yesterday, that's still behind how many early votes were cast at this point in the 2016 election. However, with the extended early voter period, Callanan thinks the county will ultimately see a bigger early voter turnout overall this year as well. Now, as we've said, one likely reason for people coming out is all of the uncertainty with the pandemic, maybe people trying to get out while they know they still can. Elections officials are asking people with COVID-19 symptoms to stay away from the polls, including from the drive-up options. So what do you do if you do have a COVID-19 infection? We'll look a little bit more at that coming up at 6. Make sure you tune back in. Live at Lions Field, I'm Garrett Berger, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Garrett. Now, don't forget, if you haven't voted early, there's still time. The early voting period ends Friday, October 31st. You can find a list of polling locations and their hours of operation right now on KSAT.com. By the way, they are open until 8 o'clock this week. We even have information on the busiest and least busy sites in Bexar County. Remember, you can vote at any location on the list. Election Day is November 3rd.
Looking outside, we have some patchy fair weather clouds, but otherwise a muggy and sticky day today. Already 90 degrees out there right now. But we had a high temperature of 92, and that's 10 degrees above average. And look at this. We missed the record by 1 degree, 93 degrees, which was set, well, in 2019. So very similar to what we had last year at this time. 91 Del Rio and Eagle Pass, 88 West Kerrville. Right now, Santa Maria at 91 degrees. And for the most part, we're right around the 90-degree mark, lower 90s in several locations. As we go through the evening, temperatures slowly falling off. More drizzle to start the day tomorrow. A cold front's teasing us right now. We'll talk about that and the passage of a cold front later this week. Coming up.
Thank you, Adam. You know, a lot of talk centering around the concept of herd immunity when it comes to the coronavirus. Countries like Sweden have taken that approach, but many experts say that strategy is simply too dangerous. As the world waits for a COVID-19 vaccine, the term herd immunity has started to be thrown around more. But what is it? Herd immunity occurs when a virus is allowed to spread among a population freely.
It would mean that 60 to 70% of the population becomes infected. That's a large enough number that they essentially create a herd of protection around other people.
But here's the problem. So far, not even 10% of the U.S. population has been infected, but more than 200,000 people have died.
If you start to multiply that times 6 or 7, that's where you're starting to get into the 1.4 to 2 million number of people who would potentially die.
Then magnify that on a global scale. The head of the World Health Organization worries that could lead to more problems.
Allowing a dangerous virus that we don't fully understand to run free is simply unethical. It's not an option.
Dr. Anthony Fauci agrees.
There will be so many people in the community that you can't shelter, that you can't protect, who are going to get sick and get serious consequences. So this idea that we have the power to protect the vulnerable is total nonsense.
Herd immunity, recent spikes, total case counts, we've been tracking it all since the start of the pandemic. If you want to follow along, you can find all of our coronavirus coverage right now on our website. Just click on the coronavirus section of KSAT.com.
If bike rides have become a part of your pandemic routine, one thing to consider, safety starts before you even put your foot on the pedal. Up next, we're going to take a look at the top-rated helmets for keeping you and your family safe. During the past several months, a lot of people have been reunited with their bicycles. 10% of adults rode a bike for the first time in more than a year, according to a new survey. But before you start pedaling, safety first. 12 on your side's Marilyn Ward shows us which helmets protect you and your kids best.
In this lab, Consumer Reports rigorously tested bike helmets, seeing how well they absorb impact at about 14 miles an hour, simulating how a biker might fall in an accident.
We repeat the test 4 times. We impact the helmet on the front, side, rear, and crown to simulate a rider falling off their bike and hitting those parts of their head.
The results? They found the best bike helmet for adults is the Giro Register MIPS. It's about $60.
So this Giro helmet comes with MIPS technology. which stands for Multidirectional Impact Protection System. It's a plastic layer inside the helmet that helps prevent transmitting rotational energy to the head if you get into a crash. And that's supposed to help against getting concussions.
For adults who prefer a more commuter-style helmet, they recommend the Lem Boulevard. It did well in the impact test and ventilation.
Typically, commuter or urban helmets do not have great ventilation, and this one did.
For children, they recommend the Bontrager Tyro for $50. It got top marks for impact absorption, ventilation, and ease of use. If you do fall and your helmet hits the ground or you notice damage, it's time to get a new helmet because it may no longer protect you in a fall. Marilyn Moritz, KSAT 12 News.
Looking outside with Sky 12, the sun is out, the heat is on, 90 degrees. So close to a record.
It's a pretty good looking shot, though, from Sky 12. I'd have to say that.
It is. We've got a lot of sunshine out there. Nice, crisp, baby blue sky. It's looking good. Not everyone would agree that it's feeling good outside. Very humid out there. Let's take a look at the current conditions from our city cam right now. We're at 90 degrees, so we're down 2 from our high temperature just a few hours ago. Dew point is 63. That's all thanks to that south-southeasterly breeze coming off the Gulf of Mexico. So the humidity, oh, it's here, and it's here to stay. You know, you look at our local temperatures, and we're around 90 and even into the 90s. Del Rio 93, Laredo 94, and as I mentioned, an even 90 in San Antonio. You widen out the view, though, and this stalled frontal boundary, which was a cold front, now it's stationary, was just teasing us today. Came into the Edwards Plateau and decided to just stop and sit. So we stayed on the warm side of it and, of course, the muggy side of it. But you get to Dallas at 64, Abilene at 62, Oklahoma City 57, even Amarillo area at 66 degrees. So there is a boundary and there is a cold front, but only northern parts of Texas are actually feeling it. And you take a look at the dew points. Of course, it's muggy around here, but on the flip side of that boundary, on the cooler side, there's a lack of humidity. I mean, Lubbock, dew point of 48, 50 in Abilene, 53 Dallas. But then you get on the muggy side, the south side of it here, Junction, humid. Austin, very sticky with the dew point of 67. This trend, our high humidity, is going to continue for the rest of this work week. So anticipate similar mugginess, okay, all the way through Friday. But late Friday, a cold front's going to hit, and notice how our dew points fall off. So we're going to have a break from that humidity by this weekend. So by Saturday, you'll notice a change in the humidity and a drop. All this humidity, though, isn't leading to much in terms of rainfall, even with that boundary stalled across Texas. But the farther north you go, the colder it is, and they're actually seeing some very early season snowfall as far south as Iowa. I mean, we're talking accumulating snow here and in another round of it tomorrow. So there is some much cooler air farther to the north of us, and they're seeing very early winter-like conditions around here. A few coastal showers we've had. You take a look at the radar over the past 4 hours, and I think this is going to be a common scene here over basically the next 4 or 5 afternoons, where we have these highly isolated showers along the coastal plain, hit or miss for locations basically from Cuero to Karnes City, Hallettsville, and eastward to the Gulf coastline. There's that slight 10% chance 1 or 2 can make it to I-35, but I think that's even a stretch at 10%. In terms of the rainfall totals, some of these little showers have been efficient rainmakers, just not really so much in the KSAT 12 viewing area. You got to get closer to Houston for some of those downpours to really add up. So this evening, muggy out there, increasing clouds, and with all this humidity and, of course, the time of year where we have longer nights, drizzle anticipated again. We started today with some drizzle and low clouds. We'll do that again tomorrow. We'll be in the 70s most of this evening. We'll start the day tomorrow at 72 degrees with the low clouds and drizzle, so dampness again in the morning, and then sunny at 90 degrees by the afternoon. So very similar to what we had today. And this trend, it continues. Morning clouds, morning dampness, just enough to make the sidewalks and streets a little slick, you know, if you're out biking and whatnot. So just be careful in the early mornings. And then the afternoon, sunny, humid, and near 90 degrees. That cool front hits on Friday, so we're going to feel the effects of it by Saturday. It's going to knock temperatures down a bit, get rid of the humidity. We'll be 60 Saturday morning and closer to 80 in the afternoon. And there is a potential for the strongest front yet early next week. Something to keep an eye on. We'll keep you updated.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, so a lot of people getting geared up for the Cowboys game tonight, but it's so 2020 that there's actually A Monday afternoon football game going on right now, Greg.
Yes, there is. As we speak, Kansas City and Buffalo. But at the same time, tonight, it starts a new Andy Dalton era. When we come back after the Dak Prescott injury, the name is Dalton. Anybody get the reference? Okay. Texans missed many opportunities to beat Tennessee when we come back.
Pro football coverage, powered by Davis Law Firm.
Tonight is a night. Life without Dak Prescott begins as Andy Dalton takes over as a Cowboys starting quarterback as Prescott heals from his season-ending ankle injury. Dalton had 9 years under his belt as a starting quarterback in Cincinnati until the Bengals drafted, of course, Joe Burrow, and that left him looking for a new job. Lucky for the Cowboys, they signed him for $3 million, and now he can make as much as $4 million more with expanded playing time and a shot at the playoffs. Tonight, Dalton and the Cowboys go up against Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, where Murray is undefeated in the AT&T Center as a high school and college quarterback for both the Aggies and the Sooners. Now he'll try and keep that streak alive tonight as an NFL quarterback. The Cowboys' first-round draft pick, C.D. Lamb. It's a Sooners reunion with Murray.
He's a great guy. He's definitely a leader.
Series. This after the Dodgers won Game 7 last night against the Braves. It was Cody Bellinger who hit the game-winning home run in the 7th inning to break a 3-3 tie and win the National League Championship Series. But in his celebration, Bellinger dislocated his shoulder by too many hard elbow bumps. He had to go down in the dugout. They had to pop it back into place.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm dead serious. So mute the celebrations for now.
That again.
2020.
Is so 2020. Yeah.
Strikes again. We'll be right back.
Reminder before we go, early voting going on until 8 o'clock tonight. I believe it's 8 o'clock all through the week. Early voting ends Friday, October 30th. You can find your nearest polling site and hours of operation on KSAT.com. Election Day, Tuesday, November 3rd.
Thanks so much for watching the News at 5 with us.
See you back here at 6. World News is